Hello, welcome back to Hobby News Daily. I'm still Danny Black, but today I'm joined by my friend Evan Parker, CEO of Mantel. What's going on, Evan?
Danny, what's happening, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, always a pleasure. I was checking; it's been like 7 or 8 months, so we're overdue. So
We're
glad to
overdue.
have you back.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I love what you guys have been able to do over the last few months. It's like I see you everywhere.
Well, that can't be a good thing, but if you stay off post office walls, you'll see less of me. Um, how's everything going? What do you think of the hobby market right now? Just the general vibe. Where are you seeing people mentally right now? This to me, and the reason I asked, this feels like the lull part of the year, right?
Yeah. But I'm an optimist. And actually, I was looking up some data earlier because I'd gotten a question recently about, from somebody outside the hobby saying, things are down from the pandemic high. And so I was just trying to see like if my bias and perception kind of map back. And like you look on card ladder data and they're saying $200 million upwards of $200 million spent, from the big auction sites and eBay on cards in November. And that you compare that to November last year, it's probably $50 million more than what we saw last year. So I think like people fixate on what a Luca rookie cost today versus what it cost in the middle of the pandemic when people were spending stupid amounts of money that didn't really have any basis in anything other than hype versus now. And if you look at that, then sure, things are down. But I look at it from the amount of interest that people have in it, or people buying cards, or people trading cards, or people, talking about cards. And again, I'm biased, but I would argue that there's never been more interest in collecting than there is today in November 2024 in the history of sports memorabilia and cards.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. As somebody who's involved in two sites that depend on people caring about the hobby, I very, very much want that to be true. And
Yeah.
actually, I agree with you. I think when I said it's a lull, you know what it's a lull in? It's a lull in the hobby drama portion of the hobby.
Yeah.
And it's a very active collecting time.
Totally. There aren't as many shows going on right now. I think that probably some people saving up money for the holidays, so we'll see a spike in things. I'm sure Black Friday. I saw a stat that like in 2023, I don't know how accurate it is, but there were 700,000 cards bought on eBay over the course of Black Friday of 23. I'm eager to see what the 24 number is, but I don't think it will be down from that. You see on social media the number of accounts that are popping up and the discourse on it from the media standpoint, what you guys are doing, the Athletic covering it, Collect covering it, like Sports Collectors Digest and Daily. There's more interest than I think that there's ever been. Even the New York Times last week had an article on the Paul Skeens change, and it wasn't the Athletic that wrote it. It wasn't like the sports guys. It was
Right.
the New York Times writing about sports cards and a debut patch card, which, as cool as that is, would not have met the threshold of like newsiness for the New York Times even a few years ago. So I think we're just seeing a lot of interest in this across the board, and I imagine that it'll sustain, and the it always like momentum just builds, and if there's momentum now, as long as we don't all screw it up, then this should only continue.
So that leads me right into a perfect segue into kind of what you do. So for those who don't know, explain Mantle.
Sure. So Mantel's a social network for collectors, and it's not just sports cards or sports collectors. It's collectors of all types. So people are on the platform talking about comics and toys and TCGs, stamps, watches, whatever. But we built it primarily as a place for people to just be able to interact with others who share similar interests. Our insight was that most social networks are either way too broad, way too much going on, or too toxic, frankly, and hard to build community. Or you're going to like message boards that have served a great role over the last 20 years, but they have not updated the technology. They don't really have the way to share rich media and video and emojis and embeds and all that kind of stuff. They're just not innovative in the way that they're built. Not the fault of the people who operate them, because they're just licensing the tech, but it's the people who are building them that are not putting a lot of emphasis on making that a really easy to use experience. And so we thought that there had to be a better way. So many people collecting, so many people love this stuff. It's so much more fun when you collect and you actually have a community around it versus just going out there and buying these things and looking at them yourself. And so could we build something that could bring collectors of all types together about these things that we love? So you could show off what you have. You could research things that you're looking to get. You could ask questions to people who might know more than you, or learn about things that you don't know. And so we launched in February, which is when we did this the last time. And the website's been operating for the last 9-10 months, and our mobile app is now out there and ready for people to download from the Google Play Store and the App Store.
Congratulations. Let's say that one more time. You
The
have an app.
is out. I've had it on my phone as like a testing, a beta app for a few months now. I guess not even a few months, maybe a month. And it's so much easier to use. It's more fun to use. And I've just been excited to get other people to have access to it. Because at the end of the day, we know for the data that we have, 70% of the people who use Mantel are using it on their phones. And they're using it on their phones with an experience that's not ideal, right? You're going to Safari or Chrome or whatever. You're putting Mantel, www.onmantel.com into the search bar. You're going to it. You're navigating. You're not getting push alerts. You have to think about it. You have to go there intentionally. And the difference when you think, I'm sure you and I are the same. A lot of us, you wake up, you look at your phone, there's all these apps on there. You're going to click on something. You don't always intend to. It's just kind of the magnetism between the app, the icon, and your thumb. And Mantel's not part of that consideration set because we're not an icon. We're not an app on your phone. You can't get push alerts. And so the app coming out allows us to, for all our existing members, make it really easy for them to access us, to participate, to remember that we exist. And for new people who have been sitting there, when I was at Fanatics Fest, when I was at the National, you go and you talk to people and you tell them about what we're building. The first question, Danny, 100% of the time is there an app? And when the answer is no, a lot of people just say, okay, well, that's not for me then. And I'm excited at the next show that I go to be able to talk to people and say, yes, there's an app. And let me show it to you. You can download it right now. You can be using it right now. It's free. It's easy. Jump in. There's nothing that you have to do. There's no hurdles to jump over. So I'm really excited for this moment.
If somebody is hesitant to, let's say, share their stuff right away, is there something for them to see and look at? And the app, only because I think about it. I mean, every time I'm sitting around with my phone, I'm just scrolling, and I'm not always in a place to show a card or something. So what does somebody get when they're going to now open the app, and what do they get when they open the app?
Well, look, the vast majority of people who are going to be using Mantel are going to be what I would call lurkers. They're people who are going in there and they're going to scroll and they're going to look at content, but they may never post. They may never comment. That they're there to consume versus to create. That's actually the same way that it is on Reddit and Instagram and blowout forums and everything else. The vast majority of the people who are on there are there to read and to react versus to actually, put new content up. So if you're one of those people, which is, again, the vast majority, Mantel has a ton because you can come on there and you can see what everybody else is talking about, what everybody else is creating. So I just posted right before you and I hopped on, I posted a new card that I just picked up, a grail of mine, and finally was able to get it. I'm going to Mantel to post about it. I don't have a grail coming in the mail tomorrow. I don't have any cards as far as I can recall coming in the mail tomorrow. So I may not have something new to post. A lot of what I end up doing is I find something that I see somewhere else, like a cool article that I read that maybe you guys posted about, or a data point or something, and I could post about it on Mantel. But if you're coming on and you're like, I'm not here to post, I just want to read. It's a lot of people asking questions, showing off things from their collection, talking polls. Hey, this thing just came out. What do you guys think? Is this something we should rip, flip, skip, whatever? There's a lot of stuff to engage with that you're able to without ever having to type anything into to a new post.
I love that because I'm definitely a lurker until I get my grail, and then I want to show everybody.
Right.
It's the quiet confidence of finally getting my card.
I'm a lurker. Look, I mean, if you look at my social accounts on every other platform, you don't see that many posts, right? I like on X, I post if once a week. That's surprising, right? On Instagram, very, very rarely. Obviously, when you're building a social network, you have to lead by example. You have to be out there and posting. And in the earliest days when we didn't have many users, if I wasn't posting, there could be hours and hours that went by where nobody was going to be doing anything. So if you go on Mantel, not only do I post a lot. I post way more than I hope that I'm going to have to post in a year or two as we get more and more people on. But when I do get something that's new, or I see something that's interesting or cool, the first thing I want to do is go to that community and say, I just thought of this, I saw this, I bought this, whatever it is, because I know that the Mantel is going to be full of people who will have an appreciation for that. My Instagram account, I've got elementary school friends that follow me. I've got family members that follow me who don't care at all about cards or memorabilia or comics or any of these things. And if I just post, like so today came in the mail, I got my Magic
Oh, there you go.
Dr. J and Bird card, my scoring leaders from college.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I've been like, this is something that I've wanted since I laid my eyes on it, and it took me a long time before I could find one in a grade that I thought was good enough eye appeal, and that I could afford. If I put that on Instagram, I'm gonna have a lot of people who follow me who are like, I don't even know what this is. But every single person that follows me on Mantel is going to know what that is. They're going to care about it in some way. Maybe it's a card that they have or a card they want, or they may not even care about it, but they know what it is and they know what it means to get that type of card. They have a different one, right? Theirs could be a Pokemon. It doesn't matter, but they just know what it feels like to open up the mail and get something that you've wanted for many, many years. That's what I love about it. Like, we're talking to each other in a really cool way.
Do you collect specific stuff? Forgetting what you have to do in your role at Mantle, are you a vintage guy? Are you a modern guy?
I go from an era standpoint. I'm relatively agnostic. I rip a lot of modern because it's obviously accessible and it's just fun. I've been collecting more vintage recently just because I find it really difficult to the modern prices can be tough. I'm not pulling anything good. And the stuff that I PC can oftentimes be expensive, or a player could get traded or something like that. And then you're left with, this is not something that I necessarily would have bought had I known. So I've gotten more modern that way, but I collect LA, born and raised in LA. So the reason why I have this card is because of Magic. Bird and Irving on it make it much cooler, but like, I wanted to get a card from Magic and that the early stage of his career. I collect a lot of Dodgers stuff. So I've got my 2020 National League Divisional Series Kike Hernandez game worn cleats up there that I bought a few years ago. And like, now, they were sitting in a vault, and then when the Dodgers won it again this year, I was like, okay, now I can like really bring these out and celebrate it. And so it's a lot of things that are connected to the stuff, it's Dodgers, it's UCLA, it's Lakers, stuff that really connects to my fandom in a big way.
Are your subjects on Mantle in groups? If somebody wants to stay in a certain area, is that possible?
Yeah, so the way that it works today is your feed is based on, we have two feeds, your following feed. So it's just what you follow. I don't collect stamps, so maybe I don't follow the stamps category. I don't collect, wine, so I'm not following that category, but I want everything that has to do with sports cards and memorabilia and cars. Exactly. So that would be in my feed that way. We also have a latest feed, which is everything that hits the platform. So you'll be able to see things that are in categories that you don't maybe care about, but if you scroll around, you might see something that you find interesting and say, oh, the Wizard of Oz Dorothy slippers sold for $32.5 million. I don't collect movie props. I don't collect ruby slippers. I don't collect Wizard of Oz, but you sell anything for 32.5, and I'm my ears are tingling. So you can do it that way. And what we're going to be launching right before the end of the year will be our version, as you said, groups. And so you could go into a topic and just say, okay, I want to go into NBA junk wax. I want to just hang out with people who are collecting, 1990 to 1996 NBA junk wax. I want to find my Skybox people. And you can go into that environment and go much deeper with people who really care about that versus posting something in the feed that anybody who collects cards might see it, but maybe a subset of people really care.
So that's coming up soon.
That's coming up soon. We're, the fun part of building a startup is that every week we're dropping new things. And anybody who joins now has the ability to like, hey, Evan, I don't like this. I wish you had this. This doesn't make sense. Could you do it this way? I mean, people really have an ability to help shape what this looks like. And if you look at the early sketches that we had of what Mantle was going to become, based on the way that I collect or the way that I assumed other people collected, a year ago when we started, it looks very different than what it looks today. And that's primarily because our early members give us a ton of feedback. We talk to them often. They post about what they like and what they don't like. They get a lot of our users have beta access. So they're using features that don't exist to the public yet, but they're playing around with it. And hey, we have DMs right now that we're testing. That'll come out at some point. I don't know when. But by the time it comes out, it'll be much better because I've got a bunch of people who are in there playing around with DMs who are users of the platform who just want to help shape this thing and help see it grow. And so That's the fun part. Like if you join now, you have a chance to help make Mantle turn into something special versus join once it's wherever it's going to be and say, okay, well, I'm stuck with these features you guys created. This is what I get. People who are there today really get to help shape it.
It's the best part of why a lot of people go on social media without all the garbage.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're really lucky. It's not at this point. It's not toxic. If you post about something that you like, something you don't like, people are respectful about it. We very rarely see anybody call anybody by name, names or say anything rude. And when that happens, it's very quick that the community comes together and says, hey, this is not the place for that. There's plenty of spots on the internet that you can go and badmouth people and denigrate people and all that. And if that's what you're looking for, I would suggest you stick with one of the places that's really well suited for it. You want to yell at people, like X has you covered. Just yell at people there. You don't need to come.
Are you kidding? I have 3 teenagers.
Right, or just go to Danny's house. But if you want to talk to people who are respectful, I think Mantle is what we're trying to. We really want it to be a place that people can be positive. And when I say positive, I don't mean that I have to love everything that you love or tell you that the things that you care about are the most amazing things in the world. But if I don't feel that they're the most amazing things in the world, I don't need to tell you that you're an idiot for liking them or that you shouldn't ask that question. You should know that already. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the collectibles world. There's a lot of, you haven't been here long enough. You haven't proven yourself. You don't own this. You didn't buy this. Where were you at this point? You hear a lot about it with the pandemic. Like, hey, if you weren't a hardcore collector in 2015, then the fact that you came in 2021 or whenever makes it so that your voice doesn't matter. You weren't there when you should have been there. So now you're worth less. We're not doing that. If you started collecting, if you bought your first card yesterday, if you went to Fanatics Fest because you wanted to go see Travis Scott and you bought a pack of cards, and since then you bought more packs of cards, come on in, hang out. There's a member who joined last week, in fact, who had a problem with alcohol, and he finally got sober, and he's like, I have to channel my like passion, my time to something new. I want something positive in my life that I can sink my teeth into. And he's been incredibly vocal and active on the platform since he joined. I'm not saying to the guy, hey, like you in 2015, you weren't doing this stuff. You don't have a say. I'm really excited that he found us. I'm really excited that he found cards and that this is something positive for his life. And I just hope we can continue to build as we get bigger. As more people come on, you always end up finding the worst of the internet eventually finds you, right? And so I'm crossing my fingers that the community can help us keep this thing civil and keep it fun, because at the end of the day, this stuff, I say this all the time, there are easier ways to make money. There are easier things to spend your time on. There's like, if you don't love this stuff, at the end of the day, you don't have a passion for collecting cards, do something else with your time. And, like this should be about, this is a hobby, right? At the end of the day, we call it the hobby. Hobbies should be fun. Hobbies should be additive to your life. And if other people think differently about the way that they interact with their hobby, let them do it the way that they want to do it. Like that's the beauty in all of this.
First of all, if nobody's been to the site, even without the app, beautiful layout on the site. It's very easy to get through. So check it out. If you don't want to start on the app or you're using both, definitely it's awesome. Yeah. As somebody with their pulse kind of on the collectibles world, because you're seeing this in almost real time, where do you see the hobby going, and how do you see the app playing a role or keeping up with the hobby? You mentioned DMs eventually one day, for the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we're going to be with DMs and with the group's product that I mentioned. We know people are going to want to trade and transact. We have to make that easy for them to do on the platform. And so we're working on some things now that, and I don't mean we're not going to create our version of VeriSwap. We're not going to create our version of Fanatics Collect or Alt or anything like that. We're not building a marketplace. But what we want to do is make sure that our users or members who are on, if they do meet somebody else who has something that they want and they want to transact, how can we make sure it's safe? How can we make sure that they're not going to get scammed? How can we make sure that it's an easy experience? And so we're thinking about that stuff right now to make sure it's going to happen. We know no matter what, people will transact on our platform. right? There's no way that we can block that. We don't want to block it, but there's no way that we could. And so how can we make it a better experience than in a Facebook group or some of those other places that people connect? And so that's something that we're thinking a lot about. And then other categories that we can keep going into. We started this with sports cards, and sports memorabilia is really our focus, in part because it's the thing that I collect and I know the most about. I've worked in sports my whole career. I'm a sports guy. So Alexis Ohanian, Brett Montgomery, my partners in this, are sports card collectors and know this world well. So how do we start with something that we know? We're going to start going into categories that I don't collect. As I said, stamps. I have one stamp. It's a first day issue John Wooden stamp. As I said, UCLA stuff. Like I've got a John Wooden stamp from 30 years ago. I can't claim to be a stamp expert when I own one and it's of John Wooden. It's not like it's an inverted penny or anything like that. It's a John Wooden stamp. So, we're going to start going into other categories. We believe, and I would put a lot of money on this, that, collectors are collectors of many things. There's an idea in the way that you look at a lot of the forums. This is just for baseball cards. This is just for watches. This is just for something else. But it's a lot of the same people going to all these different platforms. If you look behind me, I've got toys and I've got memorabilia and I've got cards. I've got all this stuff. I know that the same thing with you. Everybody that I meet, everybody I talk to may have one thing that they collect more than anything else, but if you're a collector, you're just interested in physical items or digital items that have some significance to you and that you want to hold on to. And so we're always trying to think about how we can connect these categories to each other and give people a home that they can go to. If there's somebody who's really interested in stamps, you've got your spot. But we know that if you're interested in stamps, there's probably a connection point to entertainment or to sports or to coins or something. All of these things are there's a connective tissue, and it all kind of comes under this giant collectability umbrella. And so that's something that I'm always thinking about, is how we can just make sure that the ecosystem of collecting, it always has an ability to kind of move and grow as we expose people to different categories and different things that they may not have seen before.
I love the connective tissue. I call it the collecting gene.
It's a collecting gene, absolutely.
Yeah, you have it. I think it can be genetic. I think it doesn't have to be, but I think there's a strong genetic component.
Totally. I also think,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I meet a lot of people who, when you ask, do you collect? And then, they'll say, no, I'm not a collector. And then you start talking to them about things that they have or things that they're interested in. And then you find out that they are a collector. They just don't brand themselves as such. I was at a buddy's house over the weekend and I was walking and he was showing me his office. And he's got all this stuff that he's picked up over the course of his career and his life, that, things that have significant value to him. And then you take a step back and say, well, all of these things, they have value to you, but they actually also have value to other people. They are collectibles. These are things that, you might have gotten at an event that you worked, or you might have gotten through a project that you worked on or whatever. But these are not just items that are like tied to your career or to your life. These are things that other people who have just seen them from afar think they're interesting and cool. And I think it's eye-opening to a lot of people to say, okay, well, I didn't recognize that. Like I didn't go into this thinking that I was going to go to the National and be somebody who's like a collector with the big C. It's like, no, like some people just find their way into it or realize they haven't found the thing that gets them excited, the thing that they're going to really want to start collecting. The other thing that I always say, and not everybody agrees with me, but I don't always feel like collecting has to be about ownership. There are just things that we're never going to be able to own, and we're never going to be able to have in our own collection. I've got a T206 Honus Wagner right there. It's a PSA 9. Of course, it's a replica.
Right.
That's probably worth $15 instead of whatever the 15 million that card would be worth otherwise. Like, I'm never going to own an original T206 Wagner. I don't believe that I'll ever have that kind of money. And if I do, I don't think that that's like the thing that I'm going to be able to justify spending it on. But the card's beautiful. I think the meaning behind the card and what it's meant to collecting and what it's meant to baseball and what it's meant to all these different aspects and storytelling, all that, like, it means something to me. And I should be able to talk about the T206 with somebody who owns a T206 and have just as valid of an opinion about it and just as much appreciation for it as the person that owns it. And as we see the Ohtani, 50th home run ball, or the Ruby slippers, or 1,000 other things that sell every single day, game worn jersey, or whatever it is, a lot of these things, there's only one, or there are only a handful. Most of them will never be seen in person by any of us. You and I have been lucky. We get to go to these events. You get to meet really good, big time collectors. And you and I have seen way more than the average person ever will. But that doesn't mean that the person who doesn't have access to those things can't appreciate it the same. And we're
Oh,
really doing our best with Mantle to make sure that the word collecting doesn't mean that you have to own this to have an opinion, that you have to own it to be able to be part of the conversation. You have to appreciate it to be part of the conversation. You have to understand it to be part of the conversation, or want to understand it, want to appreciate it. And that to me is the most important thing.
You've mentioned community several times, and one of the things that I really like is the ability for Mantle is like part card show when you walk around and check out, all the tables. But part like your sports cave where, if you want to have people over, and show why something's important to you or cool to you,
Yeah.
You can do that also.
Yeah.
So if somebody socially or their schedule's busy and they don't get to, go out, as much to share that community is a real thing.
Yeah, we added this thing to the platform called the Mantel piece. And it's basically like your digital display case. I wouldn't call it collection management. Like, you can't have thousands of cards on there that you'd just be tracking in a spreadsheet. We don't have that. But you can put up cards on your mantelpiece, things that either mean something to you, things that are in your PC. Later today, I'll put this, my Magic 1980 card up on my mantelpiece. It could be things that you are looking for that you want to buy, but that you haven't seen. And so you're just putting up there and like saying, here's my bat signal. This is something I'm interested in. And then it could be things that you own that you're looking to trade or to sell. And you're able to say underneath, in your kind of caption for this image. So we pull the image and we pull the grade and we pull, we have a partnership with Card Hedge. So you're able to pull what the value of the card is if it's something that's in the database. And have that on your mantelpiece, but you can also explain why you like it. And so when I put this Magic Bird Irvin card on my mantelpiece, I'll be able to explain that growing up as a Laker fan, nobody was, I know the GOAT debate, and I saw a lot of Michael Jordan, but to a kid growing up in LA, Magic was unbelievable in the 1980s, what he was able to do, and a career obviously cut a little bit short. Like, I can put that's why I bought this card, not because of Bird, not because of Dr. J, but because this is my Magic card. And I can put that on my mantelpiece. And if I was looking for that card, I could also put it up and say, I'm desperate for this thing. This is, the grade or the thing that I'm looking for. And somebody could find it that way. And once we have DMs, once we have groups, it'll make it really easy that, okay, Danny's got this, this Sandy Koufax that I'm looking for. And now I can DM him about it, or say, hey, you bought this card, you have it. I'm looking for one. I'm not trying to buy yours, but can you help me with, how did you look at it? What did you look for? What's your, and have those kinds of dialogues. And your point before about lurkers, you don't have to post anything. Like, you're not having to create content. You're just going through, searching for a card that's in your collection and putting it onto your display case, into your mantelpiece. And that is much easier for a lot of people to do versus feeling like they have to create an original post and come up with something to say and take a photograph and a caption and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, all that stuff is done for you. Just tell us what you have and it'll populate in your display case on your mantelpiece. And that'll be there for people to check. When they look at your profile, they can go and see, or they look at the mantelpiece, they can see the things that are in the collection of the community.
I love it. I have been working on 2 sport athletes. So a lot of cards that don't have value. But it's a cool thing for me. I think it's remarkable if somebody made a professional in 2 sports.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a cool thing. So
are you focused on any 2 sports in particular, or is it just anything? What's the criteria?
The criteria was, I love Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
And I'm a kid of that era. So I decided, let me branch out. I know there's other people. So, my Danny Ainge rookie when he played for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But that would be perfect on the mantelpiece.
Yeah.
Where they're the ones that are important to me. Listen, I've got my Koufax, I got my Moberg, I got other stuff. But this is the stuff that I think is fun to talk about.
Totally. Yeah, and we're going to be able to talk to people like you and say, okay, if for the mantelpiece to really be special, can we, I not necessarily build the set registry like PSA has. I mean, that's something that's unbelievable to go poke around in there to see what they've built. But can you create your version of a set? It's like, I'm just going to do what are the other 2 sport athletes I'm not thinking of? Are these cards out there? And create something that could be kind of branded within your own mantelpiece is something that like you've created that's special to you that people could be following and paying attention to. we're only scratching the surface. Like what people download, if they haven't downloaded it yet, what people are going to download will be good. What people are going to see in a month will be better. In 6 months will be even better than that. I mean, we are committed to building this long term. We're committed to building this in the best possible way. We're always thinking about new ideas. We're always talking to users. And as I said, we only know the way that we collect is it's a team of 3. Right? I know how I collect. I know how the other guys on the team collect, but that doesn't even scratch the surface of the way that collectors operate. If you walk around the National, 100,000 people, that's 100,000 different ways that people approach this. We want to make something that's flexible and make something that really feels rich and fun, and that's always getting better.
Oh, I love it. You know that I'm a big fan of anybody who grinds as hard as you do.
I
Also,
appreciate that.
so if people don't know, Evan's one of the hardest working people in the hobby.
I appreciate that.
Congratulations on the growth and success.
I appreciate that. I mean, we're building something fun. You know, we're collectors. If this is the stuff that we spend our time and energy doing outside of work, if consider myself incredibly lucky that I get to do it for work, and that this isn't like my escape as much as it gets to be my 24-hour a day daily life. You know, and I'm meeting some unbelievably cool people, interesting people, learning a lot through this process. And I think that anybody who joins is going to find a community of people who like the things that they like, or can expose them to cool things, or they can just learn. And so I'd encourage anybody to come on and check it out. It's early. You can get the username that you want. You know, there aren't like whatever your name is, there's a good chance that you're not going to get Danny Black 976432, right? Like you can get in early and get a good username. You can help shape it. It's all free. You know, we're building something cool, and I hope that people want to join us on this ride.
All right. So if you're hearing this or watching this, that means that the app has launched. So tell people what they need to do to get the app.
Super easy. If you're Android or iOS, Apple, it's just in the App Store. It's called Mantel, Mantel, named after the mantelpiece, but a subtle link to Mickey and what his memorabilia and cards have meant to the collecting community. We're at Mantel, on Mantel, ONMANTEL, on all the social networks, the website, www.onmantel.com. So you can go navigate to any of those places. You can get the download link to download it, or you can sign up on the web, follow us on social. We're always creating really good content. I love what we've been able to build on our Instagram account and our TikTok account and things like that. So it's a lot of fun just to get involved. And you know, once you're on, drop me a message. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. And we're going to keep building this thing and making it better.
And I will say, that's not lip service. You do listen to feedback. So,
if you send an email to the support email address, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to hear from me within about 30 seconds, and it'll be coming from my email. Like I am customer service. I am the janitor. I am, like, you know, as I said, it's a team of 3. Like we're all wearing a lot of hats. But that's what we have to do to build this thing and make it something that people love and people use. And you know, right now we have a leaderboard on the platform. We have a weekly leaderboard, and we've got an overall. I am so far ahead in the overall. I don't know who's going to be able to catch me anytime soon, but please, like, come and compete. But in that weekly, like, I love when I lose. I love when I'm not the top person, because it's really cool to see people get on there and put a lot of time and energy into this thing. And I hope over time, I not that I'll hustle less, but people will see less of me and see more of the others in the community, because it's a really cool spot.
Well, fantastic. Evan Parker, CEO of Mantel, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to ask you to hang out in the green room. And to everybody else, thank you for watching or listening to another episode of Hobby News Daily. And look for a companion article at Collecting on SI. Thank you very much. Take care.